we should know, coming to you from Cambridge Community Television here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, on the 21st of February, 2016, a day which is interesting because it's one day after further primary, or a caucus as it is called, in which Bernie Sanders came within the margin of error to upsetting Hillary Clinton. We will see in the future how this reality in the Democratic Party plays out. This evening we're interested in looking at the economic realities that the world economy is facing at this moment, and the reality that radicals, for instance, Naomi Klein, who a short time ago, about a decade ago as a matter of fact, was leading protests, much of which were controversial, if not considered radical, in an effort to prevent the passage of the North American Trade Association bill. The delegation which gathered together in South Florida, in Miami, was immediately demonstrated against by tens of thousands of protesters, saying that it was a scam, a ripoff. It was basically a trade agreement for the wealthy, for the export of jobs to South America, to Mexico, to Canada, and to Asia, and that the workers and the working poor would have nothing whatsoever as far as the winning of jobs with this North American trade agreement. So Naomi Klein was there, other individuals who had a radical stance as far as the development of economic position, and spoke clearly and unequivocally in reference to what needed to be done economically to prevent the export of jobs and the decrease in living wage by the working class in the United States. Naomi Klein has since written other books, has been invited recently to speak on behalf of the Pope at the Vatican regarding her position paper, This Changes Everything. A very interesting book, and interesting in ways in which Harvard University has recently welcomed Naomi Klein to a further discussion about her theses that the fact of global warming changes every aspect of economic, social, and political life. It's not a point discussed on the campaign trail. All of the popular Republicans, regardless of their ilk, are not talking about global warming. As we will remember, global warming is a fact of life, a very unpleasant fact, but one in which the fundamentalists of the Christian church are not interested in speaking about, and no presidential candidate from the Republican Party would dare to speak about global warming. Indeed, the ranking Republican in the Senate, Senator Imhoff, scoffed at the idea of global warming by taking a snowball into the Senate and throwing it onto the Senate floor. His idea being that the winters are so cold, we are not suffering from global warming, but if anything, a reduction in the temperature. What Imhoff may not understand is that the global warming does not prevent seasons from taking place. It simply puts more evaporated water into the atmosphere, causing higher amounts of snow and higher amounts of precipitation regardless of the time of year. So the floods are due to global warming, the massive snowstorms which take place, as well as the hurricanes, as well as the tornadoes, as well as cyclones, are all a result of global warming. It's not something that candidates in the Republican Party or Democrats, as far as Hillary Clinton is interested in speaking about. But the person who is interested in speaking about global warming is Bernie Sanders. He's mentioned that on several occasions, very specifically, not only in his debates with Hillary Clinton, but in discussions at various locations throughout the United States. The point that we are interested in speaking about this evening, however, is not alone in reference to global warming, but in reference to the economics and the economic situation which will begin to change very dramatically. It is already, we have February of 2016, it has already taken effect in Japan. Japan recently, the central bank in Japan recently dropped its interest rate to 0%. This dropping of the interest rate is in reference to Japan's continued effort to attempt to get its economy moving again. The economy of Japan fell into a deep crisis early in the year 2000, and 16 years later, it has still not recovered from this incredible downturn. The American economy and the European economy are suffering from a very similar situation. It's very difficult to get the economy to grow at what is necessary, as seen as a 2% to a 2.5% rate of growth. The crisis of the immigrant influx from Syria is causing a great deal of problems in the European common market, and it's a further need to stimulate the economy. So the question of economics, the question of economic theory, and the economic theory of perhaps a Bernie Sanders presidency would be something called modern monetaristic theory, MMT. And it's possible to look in any search engine for MMT. It's not a particularly popular economic theory at the moment, but it is one that we will describe during this program to show how successful MMT basically could be. A little later in the show, we will have a roll-in in which Janet Yellen engages in a discussion with Bernie Sanders regarding the economic realities. But first to the question of MMT. We mentioned in our previous remarks that Japan has lowered its interest rate to 0. This problem is taking place in the European common market. France, Belgium, Italy, Spain, and Germany are all considering what they are going to do with their interest rate to encourage money to be lended and to be invested. While this question is being debated, we don't see large amounts of investment anywhere in the world. It's a problem of billions, actually 13 to 17 trillion dollars. It's with a T. That's the entire deficit of the United States financial deficit currently. This $17 trillion figure is being stored offshore in offshore banks, much of it illegally. Were this money to be invested, we would have a blooming economy worldwide, but there are no opportunities to invest, and that is why the money is held in a safe haven, not endangered because the bank accounts are numbered and the funds are protected, but it is not coming helping anyone whatsoever. It's not paying salaries, it's not expanding the economy, it's not providing goods and services, and that's the problem that we have worldwide. Silvio Gesell, an economist, a German-born economist, made a fortune in import-export in Argentina and developed a theory for the economy of negative interest. Here's basically how the Silvio Gesell theory worked. When the worldwide stock market crash and failure of thousands of banks took place, massive amounts of jobs were destroyed. Joblessness took place not only throughout modern nations, United States, Japan, the European nations. The debate was, how can we get the economy generated again? As I mentioned earlier, Silvio Gesell died in 1930, and his books, some of which were still popular at the time, were read by a mayor in Innsbruck in Austria. The mayor thought that it would make sense to try these concepts out and decided to issue a local currency in Innsbruck, in Austria. So he looked again at the economic theory of Silvio Gesell, printed up a script with the a picture of the coat of arms of the Austrian estate of Innsbruck on the front, and with a denomination, a note denomination on the front, $10, I guess it would be at that place probably mark, 10 mark notes all the way up to 100 mark notes, and invited everyone, the population of Innsbruck, to come by and have their name checked off and pick up say $500, 500 marks worth of currency. Every member of the family, a family of four, for instance, could pick up 400 marks worth of currency. And to bring this currency into circulation, and here's how this script currency was paid for, to bring this currency into circulation, a stamp was to be purchased from the local post office, and the value of the stamp was to be 5% of the currency. So if you had a $10 bill, it was 50-cent stamp. If you had a $100 bill, it was a $5 stamp, 5 mark stamp. I'm sorry, I keep using the term dollar when it should be mark, just to keep it in line with what was necessary in Belgium, in Innsbruck. So the stamps were bought and placed, the 5% stamps were bought for this script currency and placed on the reverse side of this bill. And then everyone was allowed then to go about purchasing goods or services, to pay their rent with those notes, or to buy groceries, or to purchase cattle. So this was moving along. There was some hesitancy about how to do it, but the system came into movement. It gained more and more popularity. And the interesting thing did begin to happen towards the end of the month. Did I forget to mention that the stamp on the reverse side of the script currency was only good for a month? That's the case. Each month, each of these bills brought into circulation would be acceptable as a script, as currency, as payment for goods and services, groceries, buying cattle, or selling a house, or making payments on a mortgage, until the midnight of the last day of the month. So everyone was clear that if they had a bill in their hand that was going to expire at the end of the day, you could be certain that they didn't want to spend the $5 for a $100 bill. That 5% they could save just by spending it on something, by paying their rent early, or by buying extra groceries, or by paying the rent in advance for the following month. This is basically what happened, and a very interesting phenomena which Silvio Gesell had seen as part of his theoretical structure took place. We had a accelerated cash flow. Now, everybody who's been into business knows what cash flow is. It's what keeps a business booming. It's what keeps a business solvent. If your business, your place of business, can show that there's been a turnover, that your goods that you purchased at the beginning of the month, you've sold by the middle of the month and had to purchase more goods to sell, that's an indication that you've got the right kind of business, you've got the right location, and you've got the right price. So banks don't have a problem giving you credit. That's exactly what happened with this cash flow question that Silvio Gesell, the theory that Silvio Gesell had developed. That's precisely what happened. So the economy in Innsbruck took off after the first month. It was a successful idea. It was successful because it worked, and the economy in Innsbruck reached full employment. Everyone in the city of Innsbruck, where the Winter Olympics took place, I believe, in the 1960s, everyone in the city of Innsbruck had a job by the end of the first year of their negative interest campaign. That is a success story, which does not, however, have a popular ending. The reason it doesn't have a popular ending is because the Central Bank of Austria, although it was legal when Innsbruck made its effort to do this, the Central Bank of Austria was afraid of the consequences of this currency and declared it by an act of parliament that it was illegal to have script currency. That was the end of the first experiment, but not the end of all experiments in reference to the idea that Silvio Gesell brought about. By the way, his name is spelled S-I-L-V-I-O, Silvio Gesell, G-E-S-E-L-L, Gesell, like Gesell. And a very interesting economist who has a lot of support by modern monetary theorists, one of whom is the son of John Kenneth Galbraith. I believe it's James Galbraith, who teaches at the University of Texas in Austin, a very forward-thinking economist and a modern monetarist theory economist, I believe. There are others, popular ones. It has been said that this would be the economy that Bernie Sanders could use to generate a success in his presidency. So I believe what we'd like to do now, however, is show this roll-in reference to economy. It's a discussion in which Bernie Sanders discusses with Janet Yellen, head of the Fed, monetary policy. So join with me for a second, and I think you'll find this discussion with Janet Yellen and Bernie Sanders interesting.
Chairman, Dr. Yellen, welcome and good luck on your new endeavor here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to put into the record a recent BBC article entitled, "Study, U.S. is an oligarchy, not a democracy." Mr. Chairman, is that right? Chairman? Can I place that into the record?
And without objection.
Thank you. Madam Chair, in the U.S. today, the top 1% own about 38% of the financial wealth of America. The bottom 60% own 2.3%. One family, the Walton family, is worth over $140 billion. That's more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. In recent years, we have seen a huge increase in the number of millionaires and billionaires, while we continue to have the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. Despite this, as many of my Republican friends talk about the oppressive Obama economic policies, in the last year, Charles and David Koch struggled under these policies, and their wealth increased by $12 billion in 1 year, despite the oppressive Obama economic policies. In terms of income, 95% of new income generated in this country in the last year went to the top 1%. Now, a study which I've just introduced into the record by two professors from Princeton University, Professor Martin Gillens, and Northwestern University, Professor Benjamin Page, basically suggests that while historically we have considered our society to be a capitalist democracy, we may now have entered into a phase where we are an oligarchic form of society. In your judgment, given the enormous power held by the billionaire class and their political representatives, are we still a capitalist democracy, or have we gone over into an oligarchic form of society in which incredible economic and political power now rests with the billionaire class?
So all of the statistics on inequality that you've cited are ones that greatly concern me. And I think for the same reason that you're concerned about them, they can shape determine the ability of different groups to participate equally in a democracy and have grave effects on social stability over time. And so I don't know what to call our system or how to, I prefer not to give labels, but there's no question that we've had a trend toward growing inequality, and I personally find it a very worrisome trend that deserves the attention of policymakers.
Thank you. I mean, I think the point that the professors are making and others have made is that there comes a point where the billionaire class has so much political power, where the Koch brothers are now, because of Citizens United, able to buy and sell politicians. They have so much political power. At what point is that reversible? And that is a great concern for me. I want to go to another point. Some of my colleagues, especially in the House, believe that we can improve lives for the middle class and create jobs by completely repealing the estate tax, which applies now to perhaps less than 1/10 of 1% of the wealthiest families in this country. Would it make sense to you to give enormous tax breaks to the families of the top 1% of people in this country?
So I've indicated that I share your concern with inequality, but I guess I'm going to say on this that it's up to the Congress to decide what's appropriate in a number of different ways to address it. That certainly is on the list.
All right, well, let me ask you another question. Some of my friends in the House, the Ryan budget and so forth, suggest that one way to stimulate the economy to create decent paying jobs is to give more tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations, despite the massive wealth and income inequality we have right now. If we give tax breaks to the Koch brothers who are worth $80 billion, do you think that's going to create a whole lot of jobs in this country?
Well, I'd say most of the evidence that we have suggests that transfers to lower income people tend to be spent, a larger fraction of the dollar is spent than when there's a transfer to a wealthy individual, but changes in tax policy, so that's from the demand side. Tax policy also has supply side effects that one should take into account.
Right.
So that basically is Janet Yellen in discussion with Bernie Sanders concerning the reality of the idea of economically providing tax breaks for the wealthiest individuals in the world. That is our program for this evening. We are convinced that the relevance of modern monetary theory can be a support system to generate a thriving economy in the United States and get millions of Americans full-time jobs. We're hoping that this theoretical question will be examined now by Harvard University and by MIT, particularly the Sloan School of Economics, rather than the Sloan School at MIT pursuing the same economic theory that has brought us into the negative interest necessity that we have today. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again here at What We Should Know next week. Have